Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. What was I doing? Let me just tweet that I am back again. Am I still online? Even my stream manager is like not showing properly. Okay. Okay. Hey Kevin. Also, my chat box is tiny. Like, there's no way anyone is reading that. See if I can make this bigger. Also, can you let me know if this if this looks choppy or not? It looks kind of choppy. I don't know what to do about that. It's like the camera itself. Let's see. Like whatever. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Do it again. Wait, let's let it focus. I don't know. It feels like it's not 60 FPS. I don't know why that is. I'm streaming at 720/60, right? Yeah, it looks choppy. I don't know why. Um I kind of want I feel like it's the lens or the software. But I guess this is the best it's gonna get. Like this does not look choppy at all, right? This camera looks fine. No, well, I mean, this is focused right now and it's still kind of not good. Okay, well, now that that's taken care of, I was gonna clean the power switch. So let me plug in my soldering iron. And I will tweet that I am not offline again. I can't even. Okay. Better. Yeah. Okay, so this part of the build is just cleaning the power switch, and I think that that's kind of like the baseline for any repair. You should kind of take care of that first. This switch seemed clean enough. Um, like it booted on first try, and it doesn't seem to be flickering, which is good. Mm. Okay, so I have chat up on my phone on the side. Should be easier. And before I do all that, I'm just going to apply Kapton tape to cover R13, which is a small resistor here, and the grounding pad. So this is what I'm covering here, just because it's easy to desolder it. And if you accidentally desolder that resistor, it affects the quick discharge function when you turn off the Game Boy. It will take a little while for you to be able to turn it back on if you lose this resistor. So it's not hugely important, and if you knock it off, you can like work around it by just waiting longer between power cycling. But that's not really a common like edge case. Like it's like an edge case because usually when you turn on your Game Boy, you just play it. You're not like turning it on and off all the time unless you're a modder who's like testing stuff. But oh no, am I dropping frames again? Did I drop frames? I don't think I did. Okay, it seems okay. Man, oh whoops, sorry. I don't know what's going on with all this. Do I need a new computer or what? Because I got new internet to be able to stream better. Dan says it's only 720p. Well, so this guy Dan, who doesn't know anything about streaming to a large audience, quality content, he's the one that told me to stream at 720 60. But oh well. Trolls will be trolls, I guess. Okay, so I'm heating up my soldering iron. I'm gonna get it to 300C using this just like standard, I guess this is a chisel tip, just because this shape of the tip can it has like more surface area for the grounding shield here, the legs of that, and it just kind of helps transfer heat a little bit better. I can also heat it with a little bit of flux, not too much because you don't want to get any inside the switch mechanism itself. Oh, thank you for the I don't know who that was. Nagaro, thank you for the follow. So I'm just going to, I'm gonna get my my knife. Well, first I'm gonna turn it to a different position here. But when you look at the switch assembly here, there's a shielding. It goes above the switch here, and there's like a slider mechanism in here, right? So this is what makes electrical contact. I'll show you how. But this is what we're trying to get our knife under, right here. And that will help us just kind of like pry it open. What if the static electricity kills me? That's true. I'm wearing wool socks and I'm on carpet. So if I die in stream, Monka TOS. Oh, thanks for the sub. Thanks for the tier 1. I don't know what happens if you do that. I don't think I get money for it, but okay, so I have solder. Where's my solder? Oh. I'm just gonna tin my tip a little bit and then inhale all these fumes. I should turn my fan on. Maybe do this a little bit. Okay. And we can flow some solder here. I need to make sure that my head doesn't like get in the way of the stream. Just adding a little bit of fresh solder. Then I'm going to touch my iron to this grounding shield part to flow the solder, and then I'm going to counterclockwise pry this this knife like this, and I want to be careful to not like splash. So what to be careful to not splash like the molten solder in my eyes because I'm wearing contacts. So I did use flux. I used a tiny bit. You don't want to use too much flux because if it gets into the switch itself, you're like kind of screwed. So what mod am I even doing? I'm just gonna so I'm restoring this. I'm cleaning it so it's like in working order, and then I'm going to upgrade all these capacitors to. So I have like a custom configuration spec for these capacitors, and then if this thing can focus, no. And one of them this flex PCB here cleans noise at the power rail. So I'm gonna be doing backlit IPS screen, brightness controls, a bunch of audio mods. Basically like what I would do for my own builds, which also happens to be what I do when I sell builds. But let me start flowing this. Okay, so nice and easy. Lifted that part. We can remove the slider here. So we will also be cleaning this. Set this aside. And then, is this a new side business? Well, it's not really a business. I'm trying my best to avoid making it a business because I have so many hobbies, and like I like this compulsion to monetize them. And I mean, I do sell these, but like I donate. I used to donate like 100% of the proceeds, and like 50%. And then sometimes like my most recent builds, I haven't donated the proceeds to a charity per se, but like I sold them lower than I normally would, and then I use them to pay for Louis' medical bills because Louis is getting old and like he's having some issues. Kind of adds up, just so helping my parents with it. Okay, so shielding is removed, and I'm gonna show you something. This particular shielding, you can see like from the factory, it has this indentation in the middle here. It's not super pronounced, so I might exaggerate it a little bit more, but this puts downward pressure on the sliding piece so that you have you make better contact here. But let's look at the switch here. See all that like oxidation? It's like gross, and that's what kind of prevents. That's kind of what prevents reliable boot up. And it, especially when you have power hungry mods like an IPS screen or an amp, or you're running like a flash card or something. This can, why doesn't it want to focus in there? This can kind of mess that up. So let's clean this out. This one's like kind of bad, so let's clean this one out. Oh, I'm getting, oh, you haven't followed me this whole time, Dan? Thanks for the follow. And Excursion, thank you for the follow. Okay, so for this, I have a Q-tip that I've snipped in half with my flush cutters, and we use the cotton side just to saturate some alcohol. I'm gonna turn off my fan so it doesn't evaporate everything too much. And we're just gonna saturate the inside with some alcohol here, this. And that does get like some of the oxidation off. Oh my god, this guy. Sorry, Dan is my co-founder who happens to be somehow really good at streaming on Twitch. So this guy's got all the memes. He's like transcended into like some meme-tastic. I'm not gonna call him a boomer because he's not. but he is older than me, and I'm a boomer, so we'll see. What's up, fast boy? Okay, so this is not how you're supposed to clean it, but I'm just showing you what I'm doing. So I have the stick part of the Q-tip saturated in IPA, and then I'm just gonna scrub this out. So like I see some people, they'll be on the Game Boy Discord and God. Ignore him, chat. I'll see people on the Game Boy Discord and they'll like say, "Oh, I'm having power issues or something," and then I'll say like, "Did you clean the Switch?" And they'll be like, "I'll do that later," or like, "I cleaned it. I hit it with like contact cleaner, and then I turned it on and off a bunch of times." And like that's not what I consider proper power switch clean. You have to like actually tear it down and clean it. Did I break the plastic, or is this just gunk? Maybe a bit of both. Doesn't matter. It's not that important. The plastic housing doesn't really do much. But if you haven't seen already, I have a proper YouTube video for this. It's edited, and it just shows you the power cleaning, or the power switch cleaning. So yeah, there's like all sorts of gunk in here, but at this point it's mostly clean. I'm just gonna scrape it a little bit gently with this ceramic tweezer. Yeah, you can see there's some stuff still in there. Do I flush cutters out? No. And then when the Q-tip itself gets dirty, I just snip off the end to have another like fresh tip. Dip it back in my IPA. And then just go for another round here. This is like, that's pretty clean. Like I don't see any more gunk on it. Like see how it's like shiny and silver now instead of brown? So that's, I would say that's good enough, just like for the purpose of this stream. And then there's also this component here. This is the sliding mechanism that's on the inside. And this can also be cleaned, but you have to be really gentle. Because if you lose this, it's like a V-shaped prong thing, right? And if you lose that, then there's nothing making like electrical contact within the switch itself. So to clean this, it requires a lot of restraint. You need to be really gentle, and one way to keep it in place is you just take, one leg of a tweezer, and I'm just super gently wiping and seeing if anything comes off of these. You don't want to scrub it, and you don't want to press down too hard, because if you do, you'll bend like the V shape out of place, and if it's really flat, then it's not gonna make a solid connection. So I'm not getting that much off of it. I don't want to like overdo this. So yeah, it's super easy to lose. I think I've lost it on a Game Boy Color or something, because I was doing some Game Boy Colors before Game Boy Advance. So that seems fine. I'm gonna put this back in, and then we just solder the shielding back in place. And before I do that, I can kind of just press in on the shielding a little bit. So we can place it with, let's switch this to on. We could place it with our finger, but you don't want to hold it there for too long because it does get hot. So I'm just gonna tap it real quick, but I'm not gonna like, oh wait, I think it's not heated. Okay, so we're back at 300C, and I'm just going to melt this down real quick. Just to get it started, I'll go back over it. Shouldn't really use your finger there because it can get hot if you're not quick. So one thing I like to do is, you could just kind of hold it in place with Q-tip since you already have it out. And you kind of just want it as flush as possible. This side doesn't look as good. Oh, sorry. A little bit more here. Okay, it's like not flush, so I have to press down as I'm doing it. There we go, it's sinking in. Let me turn on the fan because I'm like that type A with the soldering fumes. Okay, so that's like pretty flush and the joints look okay. So that's a clean power switch, and then I'll just remove the Kapton tape here. I'm gonna save it for something else that we'll do in a second. What do we do next? So usually after this, after the power switch, I start working on capacitors, and I'll keep the chisel tip on. So removing capacitors is removing and replacing capacitors is kind of like a basic thing that you do when you experience low volume or just volume issues. That's usually the case. Like you can have you can have low volume on your console, and then you'll change the speaker, right? You would think that, oh, the speaker is like busted or something, or it's been oxidized and corroded and rusted, and then the resistance increases, so therefore like the volume will decrease, right? But very often it's just a superficial clean of the speaker, which I'll do today. I'll just keep the stock speaker because for this build I kind of want black accents on the inside. But usually it's just you need to replace these because these capacitors go bad after a couple years, and these things are old. These came out what 2001 or something like that, I think. So I'll show you how I remove capacitors. It's not technically the correct way. It's the Bern dog way. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's like this engineer. I think his name is like Mr. Carson or something, and he has a controversial method that I will be using just because it seems to work for me in these applications, but it's technically not correct. Technically, the correct way of doing it is using like a bunch of flux and like a hot air station to rework or to desolder. Do I have mechanical or electrical background, or did I just teach myself how to mod Game Boys? Funny you should ask, because my current profession is I'm the co-founder and editor-in-chief of a website that has to do with like EDC gear, everyday carry gear. I'll be using this actually. This is a Leatherman Free P4. I'm using the pliers for this. And I started that with Hard Dan, who's in the chat right now. Long time ago, but Dan convinced me to take my personal blog at the time and turn it into a startup instead of going to med school. So I do have STEM background. I have a lot of STEM background. I was studying biomedical engineering and pre-med. But I really didn't like I started Game Boy modding I think 2018, so I don't really remember most of the stuff I learned in college. Because in college I was just playing fighting games. I was playing like Smash and Marvel. Because I went to UC Irvine. I know Fast Boy is like a big melee head. And Irvine is like 949 area is where like Mango and Fly Amanita and like MacD. Uh, yeah. Anyway, Andrew. So yeah. So I don't like I know STEM and whatever, but I'm not like an electrical engineer. I really can't read schematics that much, but I have good learning agility. Like if there's anything that's interesting to me, I'm pretty good at like devoting myself to learning. Like especially very detailed stuff. I'm very detail oriented, and Game Boy modding just combines um my passion for like Nintendo and the nostalgia of like retro gaming and all that with the creative expression of being able to come up with designs and colorways, and then the craftsmanship involved, and the technical knowledge that's required uh, in a not super inaccessible way. So Game Boy modding has become this hobby for me in quarantine. So it's kind of new. Okay, let's start ripping out some capacitors here. That's a good question. Thank you. Um, oh, you went to UCI bi-weeklies? Oh, are you LA too, Fastboy? I think you are. You're SoCal, right? Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use these pliers and I'm going to grab the top of the capacitors and I'm gonna twist and rotate. So if you look at the structure of a capacitor, it's basically like a tube, and then it has like these legs going through it, they bend, and these leads, the ones that are like parallel to the board, are what are soldered on. We're gonna twist so that the rotational force, like the shear force, is what breaks these legs. This is a destructive method. I'm shivering from my soldering iron fan. Sorry. This is a destructive method, so that's why a lot of like engineers will be like, actually, don't do that. So take it with a grain of salt. Um, so just gonna rotate here. And before I do this, the risk is that you lift the pads that it solders to. So that just twisted right off. And I think there was even some leakage from the capacitor, or maybe I think that's from the capacitor. And you can see it came clean off, and the leads are still on, they're still on the pads here. So I'm gonna use my soldering iron later to wipe those off and then clean, but we'll do that with the rest here. Again, this is a destructive method, so you're not saving these parts, but for the most part, like you're replacing them and not reusing them because they've gone bad already. And it's really important to go slowly here because you don't want to lift a pad. And if you do lift a pad, which I do all the time, and in fact in my last YouTube video I had a board with a lifted pad, it's not the end of the world because you can just do like a jump. See. Or like scrape off the solder mask and find like a close point. And sometimes this will break the leads in such a way that they'll slide out of the cap itself. I'm trying to be really careful here. Yeah, I'm going super slow. But yeah, you can see like it breaks the legs off, and that's how they come off. Oh yeah, I mean, you can. No, I'm not even gonna say you can do that. Technically, it's possible, but like, this thing is like full of juice, isn't it? Like the capacitor is like full of liquid, and I'm not trying to get that all over Okay, that scared me because I thought I lifted pads. That's just this last one here. I have I think my first IPS mod I didn't recap. You love the Louis stickers? Thanks. They help me know what's centered on the mat for the camera. So as an example, I almost dropped like a very heavy, expensive Game Boy. So let me quickly recover from the mild panic attack. Okay, so let me show you what happens when you don't recap. Put this aside. Okay, so this is one of my very early builds. The lens is like all kinds of smudged and cloudy from the inside, so I have to redo this. I'll probably do a video of what I'm doing right now, the capacitor replacement, specifically for this build, because so it's at full volume now. I'm going to turn it on. Like, you can probably barely hear that. I also didn't clean the power switch on this because I didn't know what I was doing with my first mod. So you can see it's both green and yellow, or green and red at the same time. So that switch is obviously dirty. So one more time, listen to this. That's max volume. And then here's max volume on like one of my current personal builds. It's like much louder and more full. So that's kind of what we're going for. That's like the baseline level of volume that I want on the builds. Okay, so to recap, we've removed the pun. We've removed capacitors and we're going to recap them now. And I'm just gonna hit all the pads with a tiny bit of flux, just to help wipe the broken leads off. And let me get my iron heating again. I'm still working at 300C on this. I don't know if I'm nervous or it's cold. I think it's like actually cold in SoCal. Cold being 72 degrees. Okay, maybe it's not cold. Maybe I am just nervous. Okay, so we're back at 300. And basically what I'm going to do is just going to heat this up till it flows and then just wipe. Yeah, and then I have a tip cleaner off camera from Hako that I'm just turning the fan on again. When doing this, you just want to be careful to not like accidentally knock off other components on the board because they're like pretty small and unmarked, so it's easy to have those go missing. And when in doubt, you can just use Kapton tape to mask off anything that you're worried you'll hit. Okay, so I'm gonna unplug my soldering iron, and I'm going to remove this tip. I'm going to switch to the tip that I use for most Game Boy mods, which is just like a fine cone tip. And then next we'll install these capacitors here. So SoCal winters. I'm like so baby now. Like this would be shorts weather in when I was back in New York, and now, well, not that I would wear shorts anyway outside of the gym, but now I'm like shivering as I'm trying to solder, which is like not good. Okay, so let's talk about some of the capacitors that we're going to be using here. The first one, if I can pick it up, I have a video on this. I have multiple videos on this. This is the GBA Power Cleaner that Ingrid Helder, or Helder Silva, he designed the Flex PCB for it. I got this Flex PCB ordered from Osh Park using his files, and then I ordered the capacitors and assembled it by hand. But for the next round, because I'm down to my last pair of these, I'm just gonna order them from Helder's shop. I think it's heldergametech.com for those of you in the US, and then those of you in Europe, you can get it from zlabs.com soon. And they're, if you buy in bulk, they're really cheap and super good. So this is I have two videos on this, and it basically removes a big part of the background hum and buzz that Game Boy Advances tend to have. And then on the other side, these capacitors that I just took off, we'll do 220 microfarad at CP2 and 220 microfarad at CP4, like that. These are custom spec that Helder, the guy who put this together, he recommended doing that. Personally, like I did testing on it, I don't really hear that much of a difference, but I just ordered a bunch of them, so I have them, and that's what I'm gonna use. 470 at CP3, that's stock value, as well as 100 micro. Thank you for the follow. Okay, later, Andrew. Thanks for coming by. Oh, do I have? Thank you, Octo Papa. Okay, and then, oh, and thank you for the follow as well, Fast Boy. So 100 microfarad at CP1, that's stock, but I'm going to be adding this 680, what am I doing? 680 microfarad solid state polymer cap onto it. This helps remove the whine, the residual whine that you hear when you're using IPS mods. So we'll do that first. Now that my iron is cool, I can remove and swap the tip to the cone. And when I'm using the cone, because the surface area is smaller, right? It takes you'll need more heat to be able to apply and just touch at, you know, a second or two at a time. You don't want it like too low because you're gonna apply heat over the area for too long trying to get it to flow. So I'm gonna set this to 350. I'm so cold. I don't know why I'm shivering. Maybe I might put on a hoodie. That might help. While that's warming up, I will try to do the same. Okay, and then before I do that, I'll just hit the pads again with a little bit of flux. Might make it easier since it's the soldering for it is pretty small. So I'm cleaning first, and then this is gross. There's a bunch of brown gunk on that. Yummy. One like and I eat this. Just kidding. Okay, so this is the temp. Can I solder? I'll start at CP1. That is the wrong cap, so good thing I used my eyeballs. CP1 is 100 microfarad here. I'm like hitting my head on the camera above me. I might need to add a bit more solder to the pad itself. Yeah, just have something to pull up, get it into. So I'm gonna heat one side of the pad till the solder flows, and then I'm gonna slide the cap lead into it. It's a little bit off. There we go. If you hold it for too long, it will transfer heat into the cap and it'll be hot. So just be careful of that. In my tip, and I'm gonna get the other side. I wish I could zoom in a little bit more during these parts, but like, you guys get what I'm doing, right? Like, here, let me get close. I'm gonna touch I could get super duper close actually. I don't think I've done this yet. But imagine. Okay, so I'm going to touch my iron to the leg here. I don't know if I can focus this. It's like super macro mode. But you get what I'm saying, right? I'm gonna touch the iron here, the tip. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna touch the tip to the lead and the pad at the same time. And then I'm gonna just melt some solder into it. Okay, that was kind of fun, but like not what I was looking for. The super macro mode. Okay. And of course, while doing that, my iron gave me a low temp error. I might need to mod the firmware. No Splatoon, sorry Nefario. I haven't played Splatoon in a long time. I did stream the Splatfest for Halloween, but right now I'm more into modding than I am gaming. So, yeah, I'm building a Game Boy Advance. Okay, so we're getting this back to temp, and again, I'm just lightly touching this really quickly, and flowing some solder. Yep. And then I kind of just like wiggle my finger to make sure that it's like super gently wiggle, just to make sure that it's like flush and in there. If you're too rigorous with your wiggling, if you rigorously wiggle, you might lift the pad if it wasn't like soldered properly. So okay, we can move on to CP2. I'll do the same thing I did last time. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit more flux. Solder to have something. Oh, I got scared. I thought this cap just started leaking. It's freaking Louie's face. I was like, what is that yellowish goo? To Louis. Okay. So the same thing. Heat the pad. Slide in the cap lead. Make sure getting both. It looks fine. Checking that it's flush. This is a little bit tricky just because it's super tight right here. It's not that bad. I'm pretty sure there's like a diode or something like right next to it, so you just want to be careful about that. I'm just flowing this a little bit more to get it a little bit more flush. It doesn't feel that good under my finger, so I add a little bit. Am I dropping frames, by the way? I don't think I have, so that's good. Okay, thanks for the confirmation. I don't know what happened the very first time I streamed, but like I went maybe 15 minutes with a bunch of dropped frames, and then my whole computer crashed. And then I had to download an update that took like, I don't know, like 10 minutes. It felt like forever because I was like, in the middle of streaming. But it's fine now. Hopefully, I really don't know why the actual like top down camera is it's not as smooth as I would like. I don't know what the recommended settings are for yeah, it doesn't look that good on stream. I don't know what the recommended settings are for the Canon webcam utility, because I'm not using a cam link, so I'll figure that out. But when I eventually make the YouTube video for this, it'll look correct. Maybe 1080 60. So when you're working on this capacitor here, what is it focused on? It's just a little bit, it's kind of a tight fit because you're really close to the cartridge slot here. You can melt this because it's plastic, so just be mindful of like where your iron is touching. You want to like really come in at this angle so you don't melt and warp the thing. This particular cap that I'm using is the spacing is smaller, so I have a little bit more leeway and room to work with. And like for example, you don't really want to work at this angle, right? Because this cap is like right there. So you can just rotate the board maybe a little bit and like kind of come at it from that side. Which I'm gonna try right now. Okay, so that seems good. And we have another 220 cap, that's CP4. Again, this one is also kind of tight because you're close to the headphone jack there. And then on the other side, there are these three capacitors, C45 through C47, that are really easy to like bridge or desolder. So if it helps, you can just put Kapton tape over them when you're getting the other when you're soldering the other pad. That is not flush. Okay, that looks fine. I'm rotating the board again just to get it in position, and I'm mindful of the caps right behind it. Oh, actually, this board doesn't have those installed for some reason. This revision doesn't have them. Okay. So those are done. Next is the this cap. So the cap wants to be seated right next to the battery terminal, right? Like this. This is the final position that you want it in. So to do that, I kind of just I don't have like exact measurements for this, but I'm just gonna bend the legs into a shape that works for that. And when you do enough of them, you kind of know what that shape is. One way to, you can test fit it like this, right? So like just to get an idea of the bend, but that's already pretty close, right? And you can trim, excess length of the leads, and just be careful of where it flies because it's gonna fly. Hopefully not into your eyeballs. Is this the Retro 60 His dehum? This is yeah. Yeah, this is part of it. He also recommends this same capacitor going from this I think this is ground, like this, and then to pin 2 of the speaker. Either pin 2 or pin 4, I forget. But like that is just so weird and gross. I don't like it. I don't know what it does honestly, but the issue I take with it is well, on your shell itself, it's like right here, and like I guess if your speaker is mounted properly, it won't exceed that height, right? But if for whatever reason it's like too like bulges out too much, I worry about like cracks and stuff here. Because you have a screw post here, or no, you have a screw post here, here, and like if those are tightened in such a way, I don't know, it just feels like that would crack the shell, so I don't do it. But I do it on this side because this is definitely um, out of the way of the posts and stuff, and like it's shorter than the battery terminal, like I don't feel like it'll be it's at risk there. So let's check the fitment of this. This could be bent downward a little bit more, and I think that'll be fine. So probably didn't add any flux at all, but just placebo effects. Let's get this back up to 350, and then I will kind of tin the legs of these a little bit with some solder. Oh, you bought the kit recently? Nice, nice. Did you got the GBA Power Cleaner, right? Because that's a way easier install than his piggybacking of capacitors at the power rail. Okay, so hello? That leg is down, it just doesn't look that good. It's in, but it just looks really ugly. And it's hot because it's taking a little while to heat up. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more solder there. It's not like blobbing up the way that I would want it to. It's fine now, but I want it closer. There we go. A way better joint. Okay, the other ones might be a little bit cold, but so that's on now, and I think it should be fine. Yeah, so I might try. It's a little close to the battery terminal. I don't know if that makes a difference, but to be safe, I might just nudge it over just a little bit. After this, we can do the power cleaner on the other side. I'm gonna try to just nudge this a little bit further away. Okay. There. Seems a little bit better. Then I made it worse. Okay. Yeah, there's more clearance there now. So we could turn that over. Power cleaner goes to, I think, C15. You'll see it. C5, C6, C15. So it lines up like that. I'm gonna use the Kapton tape to just hold it in place a little bit before you get the first I don't know what that half moon thing is technically called. I think it's a castellation, maybe? No, not really. Well, you know what I mean. That um, these gold things. That's where you're soldering to on both ends of the capacitors. So some flux on those. We're still using the fine cone tip, and if you do these right, slamming into the camera with my head. If you do these right, you can touch the end of the capacitor and the contact and the solder like all at the same time, and with flux it should blob up and flow properly and be nice and shiny. That's not nice and shiny. That's good enough. Fitment is not super good right now, but with enough solder, like, kind of takes care of it. Okay. That's like, it's so out of position. Like me playing Overwatch. I probably could have lined that up better. But yeah, if you use enough solder, there we go. And with the flux, it kind of helps redirect it where you need it to be. So let's just clean up some of that flux. I'm thinking about the one viewer who asked like if I had any electrical or mech background or STEM background, and when I'm like, not really, I hope that doesn't hurt my credibility as educational content creator. Okay, so that's fine, and we can, so this is what the install looks like. Not too bad, but it's like, it's in there. Okay, so that's all good. We can clean the speaker as well, actually, while we're at it. So now we've done pretty much all the audio. Still kind of nasty. We've done the audio upgrades. I do want to clean the speaker out a little bit more. Just like metallic stuff stuck to it. What else do we have? I can clean the volume wheel too. Because sometimes when it's dirty, it'll like when the volume wheel is dirty, like it'll crackle when you're changing the volume and all that kind of stuff. So do some of this, and you can also clean the headphone jack a little bit. There's a grab some headphones. There's a mechanism in the headphone jack. Focus first. Okay. So this actually doesn't look that good, but you can see once you push in this thing, this contact here opens up, because when there are no headphones inserted, it makes contact, I'm pretty sure. Kind of hard to see in this light. Like you can see that these two are touching, right? When you insert the headphone, they stop touching. So sometimes when you have issues of like you don't get sound out of the speaker, but you get sound out of the like you don't get sound out of the speaker, but you get sound out of the headphone jack. Sometimes like if this connection is obstructed or dirty or whatever, your Game Boy will think that there are headphones inserted when there actually aren't. So that's why it's worth cleaning this just in case that ever becomes an issue. And to do it, you can kind of just like scrape the metal around here, just kind of like scraping at it with tweezers, and then you can go in there with brush with IPA or the stick part of the Q-tip, and just clean that. Same with inside of the headphone jack. Like I'm just using the tip, the stick of the Q-tip. And yeah, it's like turning slightly yellow. There's a little bit of gunk in there, but I think it'll be fine for the most part. It's pretty clean from there. So now we can move on to, what can we move on to? I have my fine tip right now. We can prep for brightness control while we have this out. Oh my god. So brightness control, the way that I route, I'll show you how I route it, but I do it on the front of the board. And the reason I do it on the front of the board is because it's if you do it properly, you avoid the wires being pinched by the shell. And if you have a clear shell, then if you have a clear shell and you don't do it the way I do it now, and you follow the guide on retro modding and stuff like that, or people on YouTube, this is what happens to your shell. So here's a clear shell. It's cracked here. It's cracked here, here. Also cracked here. And those coincide with routing the wire to the tops of the triggers here, which is what a lot of the store pages will tell you to do. And some of them, you have to go through under the cartridge slot, and or under like where the screen is, and just the way that the shell fits on top of this, there's certain parts that that fully make contact with the top of the board, right? So like there's technically no space to accommodate any extra wires, and they're like support posts and screw posts and stuff like that. So if you don't pay attention to those, and you route a wire near or under them in the wrong way, it'll cause like very obvious cracks that only get worse over time. So this is what I did in March of this year. This was like, I think, my first quarantine build. And I was like really proud of it. I thought it was so cool. And like, I would not even sell this as, a B grade. This is like an F grade. So I will make a YouTube video explaining, these faults and like how to fix them. I just have to order the new Funnyplaying clear shells that are like polished clear, so you can really see what's going on underneath. Okay, so for the front side board, you're soldering to TP8 for the right trigger, TP9 for the left trigger, and TP2 for select. So you can just hit it with a little bit of flux. and tin them, or like get some solder onto them first. I really need to mod my what's it called? My soldering iron, because it keeps like dropping voltage, so then it turns off. I think there's like a custom firmware that you can flash to it that would prevent that. Okay, so getting it back to 350. Yeah, let me get it back to 350. I'm just gonna hit these points. So TP8, easy, TP9, T2. Okay, easy. So before we go further with this, we should do testing. We should test that it boots after we clean the power switch. We should test that both our ribbon and our screen work. And then we can start assembling the mod. So I'm using Funnyplaying brand V2 IPS kits. I just think they're the best kit for AGB right now, or Game Boy Advance GBA. And I'm gonna do my brightness wires with the included wires, so you guys will figure out how to do it with just the materials that you purchase, instead of having to like buy wire and all that. Don't need this right now. And this is a new screen, so to do this, it helps to. I don't want to use. Not gonna use the OEM shell because it's gross. Okay. Yes, my closet is filled with shells. Don't judge me. I have like way too many shells. I can't even find like the back half of one. 1 second. Wait, I'm done. I have the one that we're gonna mod right here. I'm still not 100% on the colorway I want to use, but for this example, let's just use this black one. So you can get this. This is a 32 pin. Oh, okay. Well, let me test that it works first, and then I'll show you the origami for it. So this is something you should do before you commit to the build. Maybe the first thing you should do before, if you have a spare console or whatever, like before you do any of like the soldering and stuff that are, using materials or destroying stuff, because we destroyed the caps, right? Double check that your ribbon and your screen both work. Because if you try to install it and it doesn't work, you can't easily remove it and like request customer support. Let me get this in place first. And be really careful connecting the ribbon cable to the screen and vice versa. Because like the little teeth, like the pins in there, they can easily get bent, and that will cause shorts, or like just your screen won't work. Or your screen works but your ribbon doesn't work. One thing I should have done was made sure that the switch was in the off position before I just shoved batteries in there, but yeah, we can test here. I feel like there's a 50% chance that it's not gonna turn on the first time. Yep. Oops. Hold on. Whoops. I moved the I moved the battery or the board. Yeah. This board is not flush in here. At least it booted. It's just my batteries are like, all funky. There we go. My batteries are like barely in. Okay. So the screen works, sound works. It might not sound very loud, but that's because the top shell isn't on. The top shell like kind of adds like a reverberation and like a resonance. Not a reverberation is not the correct word. I'm pretty sure it's resonance. That increases just the overall effective volume. Yeah, it sounds good. I don't hear the buzz. The screen works. Ribbon works. So that's good. We are ready to proceed. But before I do that, I want to change the power LED. The power LED you want to do after you're ready to have an IPS kit in, because in the past I have done everything except for the IPS kit, which takes I think it draws more voltage, or it requires more whatever. Like it's different than the original non-backlit screen, right? So in one of my first builds when practicing GBA with the new kits, I changed the power LED to something that had a larger forward voltage than the stock LED, and I blew the fuse basically. I didn't have a screen installed, so I guess when you have a screen installed, it kind of draws that additional voltage or something. I don't know, but I don't know the technical reason why, but I killed the board because I did that. So I'm just going to say, based on my experience and like every experience after, having an IPS kit, if I change the LED to like a new one that's brighter or higher forward voltage, you need to have an IPS kit attached, basically. So I don't want to do this later when I have wires in the way from brightness control. So let's change this LED now. I'm going to add a different green LED and I'll show you the process for that. So let's safely undo this screen. I don't think there's a new recent clear way to showing people how to change the LEDs. I've changed both the regular power LED and the low power or low voltage LED. So let's do that. And for this, we will need a different knife. I mean, a different tip. It's a knife tip. Let's unplug, let that cool down. And I'm gonna safely remove the ribbon. And what do we need for that? We need some Kapton tape, because I don't recommend changing out the low power LED. It requires, I think it's 2 milliamp at like 1.8 volt, when most LEDs this size, I think it's 0603, they're like 10 times that, which makes sense. I think they're like at 2 point something volt and they're like 20 something milliamp. So it's just hard to find a compatible low power LED, and the available colors for low power LEDs that like fit the spec that you need, they're like red and yellow and orange anyway. They're like warm colors, so like it's really not worth it. Where did I get the LED? I got it. Yeah, I order most of my parts from DigiKey because I don't like Mauser's shipping and prices and stuff like that. Okay, so basically I'm just masking off this LED because it's easy to desolder both, and it's just like such a pain. Because the way I'm doing it is also technically not correct. I'm not using hot air, and it will be a destructive method. So I will not be keeping this the green LED. So switching tips to this knife tip, and without it on, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. But basically I'm going to apply a tiny bit of flux, and I'm going to use the knife tip. I'm shaking as I do this. I'm going to use the knife tip to hit both sides of it at once. So I'm desoldering both sides, and then I'm going to flood it with solder, and the flux in the solder will help kind of like encapsulate the LED that we want to remove, and then you kind of just gently brush it off of the pads. So heat this up. Since this tip is a little bit it's broader and not as fine. Sorry for shivering. It's broader and not as fine tip as the cone one, so we don't have to go as high as 350. So I'll just do it like 330. We'll add some flux here. Turn on my fan. I just like tinned the tip of my iron a little bit, but so let's see if I can drag this out. You also want to be careful to not like melt the rubber part of the trigger. So I think it needs more solder. I might have to do this a little bit off camera because it's super delicate and hard to see. Wait, am I even doing this on camera? Hold on. I don't have enough solder. Why is this so hard? I mean, it is hard, but well, I got it off, but I pushed it into the wrong side. That's my bad. But it is removed. No, it's not. Okay, that's not good. It's like stuck to the other one, which is what I didn't want to happen. So let's try this again. I've never had that happen, honestly. Okay, there we go. Kind of just yeeted it off. I'll be curious to see if it still works. So let me bust out the meter. I don't know if that was helpful, but that was the process. So it's off now. Meter. So we hold this fancy Fisher Price meter that I use. We're gonna get it into diode mode. Looks like this. And out of curiosity, I want to see if this still works. That'd be funny. I feel like I torched it. I don't think it works. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Like I said, it's kind of a destructive method. We're going to replace it with a different color green. And that's not green. Okay. Oh, it was off camera. Yeah, sorry. It's so the thing with the knife tip is like it's not I should not do the beauty blogger like hold against. Come on. Yeah, so the thing with the knife tip is it's not flat ground, meaning it's not like like a like a straight ramp, like, you know what I'm saying? It comes like a V shape, I guess. So that it's hard to hit the angle where you're flat flush to the board and to the sides of the LED at the same time when you're like, you know, you have a camera on top of you and you're trying to hold tweezers and like solder. Um, so yeah, but that's the basic idea. You're flooding it with solder to get both sides flowing at the same time. Because it's really easy to, if you try to do like one side at a time, wiggle it off one side at a time, like I think it's easy to rip pads there. So these are 0603 size LEDs. I don't remember what the voltage is. I think they're around 3 or like higher than 2. They end up being pretty bright when you're installing them. It's like way brighter than the original power LED, but they look cool, and I don't think anyone will complain that it's like too bright for them. Especially when most people who buy these, at least the people I know who buy these, like they haven't played a Game Boy in like 20 years, so they don't really remember. It's kind of funny. So I sold a couple of what I would call um B grade consoles yesterday, and uh the buyer asked me like, "Oh, can you tell me a little bit more about the defects, right?" Yeah, I can hit you up, fast boy. Um, they asked me like, "Oh, can you tell me a little bit more about the defects, right?" So I took like a video showing like different angles and different lighting conditions of like a little bit of adhesive drag on like the bottom edge of the lens, like so, like for example, like there was a tiny line, there's like a tiny line here that looked, you know, it kind of has like that rainbow effect, like that refracting light in glass effect, like on this corner, and then there was like some cloudiness here from like a defect in the glass itself, but like when it's on and you're viewing it like as you're playing it, you can't really see it. Then I had a little bump in the shell, It's like imperceptible unless you know it's there, but I showed him all of that, and then he was just like, okay, well, thanks for being so transparent about it, but I literally cannot tell what you're talking about. So it kind of, it kind of brings a little bit of. Okay, you can pipe down Google. That was strange. My Google Assistant started talking back to me, even though I did not mention Google at all. Okay, so it's to the correct green, right? Yeah. But I think it's the reverse since I have this console upside down. I'm just using the diode mode to check the, the polarity. Okay, so this should be reversed. But yeah, it gave perspective of like the things that I want to beat my own ass bro over. Like normal people have no idea what I'm talking about or like what I'm stressed out about. Thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna switch back. I'm not using the knife tip anymore for this build. So back to from here on out, we'll be using cone tip. So having the meter handy is useful just to double check and confirm polarity. And get this to 350. And then you're gonna want to do this the same way you do all other SMD soldering. Melt one side, slide it in, hold it in place, let it cool, and then hit it from the other side. This is a little bit hard. It's like kind of straightforward, I guess, if you know what you're doing, but just mechanically it's difficult because of how small these components are. I should also get my Kapton tape back. I put the tape just to mask off here. Doesn't help that I'm cold and haven't eaten because now I'm super shivery. We could hit it with a little bit of flux. My tip cleaned, and then in it a little bit. Okay, I have 1 point anchored. Kind of don't trust it, so I'm gonna touch a little bit of solder on both sides. I still don't trust it, so it's hard to get it like perfectly straight too, but it doesn't matter that much because it gets diffused into the light pipe anyway. Okay. Now we just double check our work. Am I doing this backwards? No. Okay, I had it right the first time. Okay. I'm not sure if that even changed the color. the green that I picked may be just the same color as the one we just did, which would be annoying. But we'll see when we turn it on. So, oops, now we can, let's leave that as a surprise for the end. So now the board is completely done, except for brightness controls. So now we move on to shell assembly and screen installation, right? So before we do that, I just want to clean the contacts of the buttons, because I've had that be an issue before. I'm kind of worried that that LED is not going to be the color that I thought it was going to be. For some reason, did I just grab the wrong? I'm dumb. I did. Okay, so see this G? It says G for like green, right? Incorrect. It's actually YG for yellow green. So let's redo this, because that is not what I wanted. Where's my actual green LED then? Oh man. Okay, so smart past Bernard took out the correct color of LED that he wanted to use and put it out so that this exact issue would not happen on stream. Oh wait, was it here this entire time? It was. It was right in front of me this whole time. So this is the green that I wanted. Pog, we get to redo this entire thing. So I'm going to do it the lazy way because I've shown you the try hard way. So let's see if the lazy way works out for me. So I am just going to, wait, first I'm going to move the new LED out of the way. And then I'm going to yeet the old LED off. Okay, it's like successfully yeeted. That was not... Okay, I didn't lift the pad or anything, so... Let's confirm again. Every time I do this, I have to just like confirm the direction. Wait, am I... Okay. Okay, this is the green that I wanted. That's fine, no big deal. I'm going to add more spotter. Probably too much. Okay, that looks a lot better. Do I keep doing this backwards the first time? No, right? Or is it just not soldered? What did I do? Wait, am I tripping? Okay. Okay, that's the correct green I wanted. So that's done. Now we can move on to screen and shell assembly. So let me show you how I do that. This will be done in the Funnyplaying brand shell because outside of the OEM shell, I think that they are the highest quality available. So let me grab the shell I'm using. It's going to be transparent blue because we are doing an EVA unit 00 prime build. I'm going to remove all of the buttons and membranes first. Set these back in the bag. But make sure to drop them on the carpet before I do. Okay. Okay. This is the most stress-inducing part for me, honestly. There are a couple of things that you want to do when you get ready to install the screen, right? So the first one being we check that the screen and the ribbon work. We've done that. Next is that the shell or the screen fits in the shell. If you have like a spare screen, it's better to test with that just in case for whatever reason the shell itself is not molded properly or your trim is bad if you're using a pre-trimmed thing. Because if you try to shove in the screen that you're committed to use, you might break it in the process, which is why I have broken screens to test with because I broke them by not testing them like properly, or I made a mistake with the shell trim before. And another thing is, it is tempting to just like drop it in as is without the gasket because these Funnyplaying brand shells have these little like spacing nubs, right? On the side, but see how close we can get it. I don't know, for some reason it doesn't fit as well when there's no gasket under to kind of raise the screen, because you can see how like this nub, if it focuses, it has that like rounded corner, right? I feel like the closer to the rounded corner it is, the easier the shell can, or the screen can fit into the shell. So without the gasket, you're really flush to this bottom like floor of the shell. And I don't know, for some reason I feel like the base of these nubs presses against the screen more the further down closer to the front of the shell you get. So what I do to avoid that is I install the bracket or the gasket first so that I don't like misjudge the trim, because the final product will have this installed, right? So if you accommodate for no gasket and then you go ahead and like install with gasket, the results will not be consistent to your expectations, right? So that's that. Before I insert this though, this is just a detail that I do on my builds. I don't even think I have an example without it anymore. Actually, I do. So for this I think I'm committed to using a black lens. I think I'm gonna use a black okay, so I think I'm gonna use a black lens for this, right? Because the other two that I built had black lenses, and the theme that I'm going for from the anime, like its accents are black and white and blue, right? So I'm gonna use a black lens for this, and one small detail I do is I paint the inside edge of this viewing window black as well, so that when you look at the Game Boy from different angles, basically angles that you're not playing at, so like it makes no difference in practical usage. It will give a seamless experience, a seamless visual experience. Because if you compare to like a standard Game Boy, or like an aftermarket shell, when you install, you can see like this, well, not this side, but like on either edge, you can see just this little bit of the plastic peeking through. Oh my god, that's a different color than your lens and the screen itself. So if you use black with a black lens, it makes this really nice, seamless visual. So that's one thing I like to do. So to do that, I'm just using a paint pen. This is Japanese Uni Posca. And since, you know, you're not really handling or touching the inside of this ever, I don't have to do like any prep work for it really. So I'm just gonna go over this. It's really easy. And kind of just let it dry. I do this basically on all my builds now. It's not like, I don't recommend it for everyone. It's kind of a preference thing, because oh, my stomach's growling. Because one, it's not, I wouldn't consider it like authentic or original, right? Because the way Nintendo made Game Boys, they don't have this edge painted. And two, when you're playing a game, when you're playing the Game Boy, like actually using the thing, you're not gonna see these inside edges because the viewing angle is dead on. So like you're not gonna see them with the lens installed. It's only when you look at it from the side, which honestly doesn't really happen unless you're shooting a video for like a sales post or something, like I would be, or you're taking pictures for the internet so you can get validation from strangers. Uh, so yeah, I'm just going over this kind of briefly. I'm just hitting the corners now, and letting like it blob up and drip into the corners, and it'll dry. And while it's drying, we can start thinking about um, the gasket. And you'll see that when I install the gasket, there's a chance that I'm gonna like go over or like chip off this paint anyway, so I'm not paying too much attention to it, but I'm just looking at where it's drying, and like any um side that I haven't hit, I'm gonna try to go over quickly. Oh, well, I got a little bit on the front here, but you could just kind of wipe it off. It won't matter because it's under the lens anyway. Okay. Yeah, I just missed one more spot. So the next thing when I install the gasket is one of my goals is I want to make sure, let me get this placed here. You want to make sure that none of this peeks past this edge, and it's especially noticeable on the right side. So let me pop out this center piece here so you can see what I'm talking about. And you can tell the orientation because the ones that are included now in the IPS kits, there's 3 notches on the left side, and it's skinnier than on the right side. So it goes in this orientation. But yeah, you can see that like it's very easy for this gasket thing to peek out along the edges, right? And when that happens, it'll obstruct the screen itself, and I don't like the way that that looks. So when I stick down this gasket, I kind of just like shove it as far to the left as possible, so it's out of the viewing window. I'm gonna turn off the fan real quick. I peel one side down, the side that I'm going to stick down, but I leave the top on for as long as I can. This does have like obviously a little bit of stretch to it, right? So it's not like a rigid fixed shape. So that's, you kind of use that to your advantage here. But sometimes, like right now, it can pose an issue because the top coming apart. This is hard to do on camera because it's really precise. I don't like doing it this way, but the top is kind of getting in the way. Move the PCB first. Okay, I might just undo this whole thing because it's not really doing me any favors. Yeah, I can't get it on with this. I'm gonna take this off. I'm using my spudger just to kind of like guide it to the notch, and then I press down on both sides to get it past the notch. I don't know if like just describing it that way without a visual is helpful, but yeah, the goal is you just want the gasket as flush as possible and as far away from the actual viewing window as possible, so that there's no chance of the adhesive showing past the window of the shell. So I'm gonna get it down roughly, and then I'm gonna double check my work. But I can already feel it's a little bit will extend on the bottom right corner when we flip it over. Also, when you continue to like manipulate the gasket like this, sort of weakens the adhesive just a tiny bit so it's not like perma-death grip. But yeah, let's get this upside lined up. That looks pretty good. You also don't want it so far that it's like past the what's hidden by the lens, right? And you also don't want it so far that it's like not flush with the nubs, because the nubs help center, right? But I think I've accidentally done that. Okay. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera because it's hard to see. And like I'm nudging it a little bit with the spudger, but you don't want to oh my god, you don't want to nudge so hard that like it clumps up, because then it might affect how flush it fits, and then when that happens you might see like a wonky, you know, like not parallax effect, like a skewed perspective on the screen because it's not down flush when you look at it head on. Okay, so I'm just judging the look of it here, and I can kind of see this bottom right corner is extending further past the window that I would like. So this is exactly what I'm talking about here, which is what you want to avoid. The rest of it looks okay. Again, it might not be something that most people notice or care about, but just what I look for. Because it's not too hard to just get the gasket out of the way to get a better, fuller view of the display. Looks cleaner, better overall. Now I'm just kind of like straightening out here and making sure that it's not too far out of the way, and then this dragging it down just a little bit. And when you're, yeah, like I said, when you're tacking, you're like touching the adhesive a lot like this, it kind of lessens the severity of the death grip. Okay, so this looks fine. So now we can install the screen. Oh, actually, well, if I didn't have to remove the top backing, if I could have kept this on, I would have test fit the screen. But for the purpose of this stream, because I'm already doing this, I'm just going to assume that it works the way I want it to. And right after this will be lens installation. So I'm gonna prep a different surface for that. Okay. So yeah, pretty simple. You just don't want to touch the screen once you take the protector off, right? I'm going to insert it from, I'm gonna anchor it against the right side, the bottom right corner where the select cutout is. And I'm gonna let it, oh shoot, what am I doing? I have the gasket, okay. Don't do what I just did. I almost pressed it down like as an example with the gasket still open and like sticky. So yeah, I'm just gonna peel this back very quickly, just put it in, drop it down, inspect from the bottom to make sure that all the corners are in flush, and keep it face down, and then start prepping the lens for installation. So I always get nervous when I do this because this is the most stressful part for me, is getting the screen done right. Getting that down. Pushing it all the way to the right and to the bottom as I can. And then, so now I know it's not flush. So I'm just gonna gently press on the corners as much as I can. Like you kind of want to hear that click, but hopefully it's like not destroyed. I hope it stays down flush like that. I'm just pressing around the edges to make sure the gasket is adhering. You don't want to be too rough here because obviously this panel is super thin and it can crack. I can tell that it's still not flush. So there's the next click. I'm looking at it at an angle here. The bottom seems to be installed. Corner. Okay. I have this like see-through lid thing, so I'm just seems mostly flush. Okay, so I'm gonna faint, but that screen installation. The main things that we did were we tested, or we painted the inside of the viewing window edge, and then we installed the gasket and made sure that it doesn't spill over and encroach the viewing window. And then we installed the screen and made sure that it's flush and clicked in to the IPS shell gently and adhered down. So next is lens assembly. Usually I mess up and this takes a lot. This takes me multiple tries, but I'm gonna give it my best effort to do this in one try, hopefully without like crazy dust accumulation, because this is just like the hardest part for me. So, and I'll be the first to admit that my builds don't go perfectly the first time. I make so many mistakes. So there's a likely chance that we'll have dust or something under the lens, but hopefully we won't. So the way I do this with this lens is I remove the backing, and let me just get the tools and start prepping for it. Okay, so I actually didn't want to do this right now, but let's go for it because I'm on stream and it'll be a good resource if it actually works. So I'm going to remove this backing, and then this should leave this 3M backing still on here with the adhesive in the viewing window. Then I start peeling from the bottom corner with a pick. And the reason you start at the bottom corner is, do I have a better example of this? Well, no, but the backing on it, like there's a tiny bit of space between the edge of the cutout of the backing versus where the actual glass exposed viewing window starts. So and remember, you're peeling the backing of the adhesive layer, right? So if you too aggressively try to peel the backing, you might drag the clear adhesive into the glass viewing window, such that when you look at it from the front, there's going to be like this weird rainbow shine effect from like see-through adhesive, right? So that's what we want to avoid. And the bottom right corner has the most clearance for that, in my experience, because you just have more of a surface area to work with here compared to like these edges, these corners. And even if you do happen to get adhesive in the bottom edge, I think that's less noticeable because likely you're not looking at like the bottom corner when you're playing. And 2, I think it's easier to lift from the bottom edge when you're readjusting the lens. But hopefully we don't have to do that. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And so we remove, and you want to do this all very slowly because I'll show you. These backings are attached to an adhesive layer, right? It's the adhesive that if you pull too aggressively, you pull the adhesive along with it and it drags, and that's where you get like that dragging, adhesive drag that I'm talking about. So if you do everything here slowly and you take your time, you avoid pulling the adhesive and dragging it. It will be more noticeable in this section right here. And you also avoid a lot of like static buildup. So I'm gonna pick the bottom of this corner here. Okay. So with the pick, I'm revealing this adhesive layer, but you can still see that there's paper there, right? So that's the last layer. That white corner is paper. And you can see I get really close. Well, maybe you can see, but there's still like a black edge is peeking through, and that's what they meant by like you have more clearance before it starts getting to the actual window. So I'm going to use tweezers to pull this adhesive layer off, and this is where you need to go super slow and like try to, like you can see right there, see it's pulling the adhesive like that. You want to get it kind of slow so that it doesn't pull too far into the window, because it's hard to adjust for that. So again, it's just being really slow. Like this side already is like manga-esque. You know, just going along the edge here. So this is almost done. I did forget one thing. And that is compressed air, just in case. I'm super nervous. Okay. Even though I've done like dozens of these, I'm nervous every time. Okay, so we peeled this off. Let's get this somewhere where it won't stick onto stuff. The next step is turning it over. And I probably won't need to hit it with compressed air. I just have it just in case I need to adjust after. But what I want to do here is hold this by the edges and pinch to release this paper layer here. Remove that and then very quickly just drop it in and center it, holding it from the edges like so, right? So there goes nothing. Okay, wait. There's like exactly one speck right in the middle is what I wanted to avoid. So before I drop this down. Oh wait, maybe that wasn't a speck. Oh, nice. Okay, so I think we got this. Oh, nice. That might be a pog. Oh my god, we did it! Poggers. Okay, so you can see there's no dust on the inside or the back of the lens. So hard part's over. This also to me looks pretty centered just by the edge here. So that looks good. And then I'm just gonna look at it under different angles to make sure the screen itself is flush. This side might not be, so yep. Clicking it down that last time. Hopefully no dust got in there in the meantime, but now that looks like a good lens and screen install. So I'm glad I took my time to explain it there. So that's done. If people were in here, that would be very much a pog moment, but now we just need to double check that everything works. So we can start by assembling do I want to start by assembling, or do I want to go straight into brightness controls? If anyone here is still watching, do you care which route I take? I could show you what it looks like with it installed, or I could just go straight into brightness control wire routing. Because I'm going to end up doing both either way. Oh, I'm kind of annoyed that like this one corner doesn't have enough paint on it, but it's fine. Okay, let's just save this for the end. Ideally, you test that your backlight went fine, but I'm just gonna go ahead and solder in brightness control so I can get this over with. I think I've been streaming for 3 hours. Okay, normally builds don't take me full 3 hours, but I'm explaining everything. And this is like a pretty comprehensive mod. I think I've done like all the mods I know for it, so. Move this out of the way. And now I'll show you how I route brightness controls, and then we'll do our final assembly, and then some QA. So let's get soldering iron back. Still using fine tip, the 350. I'm really surprised that this has taken 3 hours. I feel like it hasn't, but because usually when I do this, I'm like watching anime or something. Because like I'm right in front of my TV set up, so I'm watching Haikyuu right now, which is like a sports anime about volleyball, and it's amazing. I've like not watched sports animes before. I used to watch Overwatch League, which is esports, and that the season ended, so we're in off season now. But that was that's what I used to watch when I would mod this stuff during the summer. But now that that's over with, fumes are going straight into my face. Now that that's over with, I'm still itching for that like team dynamic of sorts. So I'm watching a sports anime, and it's good. It's kind of like I kind of want to make builds inspired by the team's colors in that, but I think that's a little too much. Says the guy that's building, like an Evangelion Game Boy. Anyway, okay, so what I basically did was I just tinned the points here. So I added flux first, and then I touched my iron and hit it with solder, and now you have these 3 shiny bubbles. That's what you're looking for. A lot of people end up scorching these pads and like lifting them. It's because they're using too much heat for too long, or either or both. And really, like, you just need enough heat for the solder to flow. You want to be touching the pad. Flux helps, and all of that. So next, I'm going to attach the included brightness wires, and I'll have L and select routed going out to the left, and then R, or the R trigger, going to the right side. And you'll see why that works in a second. So we'll just get these on. Oops. I'm gonna rotate the ribbon to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so those three are soldered in. Now for 32 pin motherboards, so this is a 32 pin board, right? I showed you earlier. This is gonna be, it's just like not gonna work this way, right? So you need to make some folds, and it's a little intimidating at first because these are hard creases, right? So the first one is this black end is coming down this way. So it looks like so. And you kind of want to just like get that nice and straight. Make a hard crease in here. Move that out. And that's that. And then the other side, creasing it the other way. So get it down to around as far down as you can, and then make the same crease there. So this is what you end up with, like a Z. Right? And that way, you have this inserted. This comes down. Wait, did I do that right? Yeah, this comes down like this, and then the screen is on this way, and then it's flipped back up, right? I guess I can leave this attached as is. Might be better to do it with the shell on. Whatever. Yeah, let's get the shell on. No, let's not do it with the shell. I don't like soldering with the shell nearby, just to be safe. Okay, so like I showed you earlier, these wires will go through the front of the board to TP8 for R, TP9 for L, and TP2 for select. So let's start with the right side. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to run this wire under the legs of these chips, of this chip here. See that, how like it makes kind of like a tunnel? So I'm just going to do that. You're basically threading a needle here. I'm just super shaky. Okay. So this comes through, right? So that came through. You do have to kind of navigate around the helder mod. Like this. Oops, like this. And then you want it to be able to route it so one side exits from this cartridge, the cartridge slot thing there, that piece of plastic. It's not going to focus because my thumb's in the way. And then you want it up and around this corner of the, up and around this corner of the AB membrane. this one, and then you finally want it to finish at TP8 away from these screw posts and supports, right? So I kind of like to line it up from the side and get it in between these two components here. So I'm just gonna hold this down and get it at an angle that's to the right, and then just solder that down real quick. Okay, so that's done, and I have it pointing like right and down, so that way it doesn't get in the way of this or this. So this one's done. And next I'm doing the same thing here. So we could go with select, run it through these legs, and then we want to route it coming out of this part here under EM7. So this like little space. Show you what that looks like. Like this, and then I just want to bring this down so it's like going vertically into TP2 like this. Okay, so that one's done, and that just leaves L, which goes to TP9 in the top left. And we can actually fit this through in the same route under here. Well, we should be able to fit this through. There's like kinks in the wire, okay. So same way, except this one we also wanted to come through the same spot here, where my thumb is pointing. This same area. This part is a little bit tricky because you want to get it to TP9 coming from the right side, but above this screw post here. Okay. So it looks kind of like that. So that's in. So this is what the routing should look like. Well, not perfectly. So now, sorry, I'm just super crackly. Now we're going to fix the wires in place so that they don't move during shell assembly and they just stay put. Because like I mentioned earlier, if you route incorrectly or these things move out of place, you can crack the shell at different spots. I cracked the shell of the red Evangelion one that I did, 2 days ago. Not because of the wire routing, but because I over tightened the screws. So we'll talk about screws in a little bit. Just so for now, the easiest ones to do is these the L and select ones. I can get this situated. I put them around, like I put a dab of, this is UV activated adhesive. So I'll show you what it looks like. It's kind of like super glue, but not as strong, and you have a lot of control over it. Getting a dab here on top, and then we're going to activate it with the UV light. It doesn't take this long. I'm just showing for effect what I'm doing here. But now you can see that little dab there. Oh, I only got one of the wires in it. So I also don't like that one wire is under the other one. It's kind of my bad. I already soldered it down, but what I mean is, like, one is like overlapping in a wonky way, but I need to use a little bit more there because I wasn't holding it down properly. And it's not as important for these two wires in particular, because they have more clearance than the other one that I'll show you. So those aren't going anywhere, hopefully. Yeah. Okay. This next one, it needs to basically hit this bottom corner, this bottom green corner. And I'll show you why on the shell itself so that you can see significance of this routing. This does like add a little bit of tension to the wire. I just kind of have to be mindful of that. And you don't want to add too much because you don't want it to like take up too much space such that it gets crushed under the shell. So that looks good. And so does this. Okay, so the wiring is done. Now it's just shell assembly. Hands are kind of sticky from that stuff. So let's bring back the front of the shell. Oh, I have plastic. Okay. Almost done. Thanks for sticking by, or sticking with it, the rest of you who are still here. So, what am I doing? Oh yeah, so we have to attach this ribbon here. Yeah. You kind of want to, as best as possible, attach the screen ribbon by putting pressure towards, by putting the screen side ribbon connector to the board side ribbon connector, putting more pressure towards the board side connector rather than the screen, because this part flips down, right? And you could break the screen by pressing too hard into the screen. So what I like to do is I try to like pinch behind the ribbon cable and like line it up. This is kind of like wonky to do, especially on camera, but I'm going to take my time since taking your time yields the best results. Okay, so that's in nice and easy. And then we get it down and a little bit to the right. Just so that it fits the start select hole a little bit better. Let me get my start select. like such. Okay, so you kind of want it to be able to line up like this. And one thing that helps that along is tapped on tape, but tapped on tape is kind of boring. So instead, get this down. I want to insulate back of this ribbon anyway. So our buddy Louie is going to help us do that a little bit. And then from here, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Actually, I want something to hold this up so I'm not putting too much tension. Okay. You want to put your buttons in first, right? So get your buttons. The B. Both membranes and start select, which we've already done. So I'm using matching blue membranes here. Okay, this part is the baggie here. It's very important that if you're using a Funnyplaying shell, that you use Funnyplaying that you're using their aftermarket hardware. I don't know the effect of using the original light pipe in a Funnyplaying shell, but to be safe, because I've made this mistake a bunch, to be safe, I'm going to use the aftermarket light pipe. This piece, this clear piece, all it does is it directs the light from the LEDs that we installed to the front of the shell. So that goes in there. It's very easy to forget, especially when you're reshelling or you're using a new shell. So those are in triggers. So Funnyplaying buttons, they don't come with the, they call them shrapnel, but the little like metal support things that cause the resistance in the triggers, they don't come with those installed. Rather, they don't come with them installed. They come in a separate baggie like this. So we have to install them ourselves. And you want the side with the bump facing out. So these bumps are facing out. And the way I like to do that is I'll take the trigger and then I'll insert them with the bumps facing out. I'll just get it started like into place like this. And then I'll take my tweezers and I'll just push down evenly from both sides down like this. And just make sure it's in all the way. So you do that for both triggers. I don't know if this is like super obvious, but I remember it gave me trouble when I first used these buttons. This is a little bit crooked. Why is it still crooked? Is it crooked or am I tripping? I think it's crooked. Okay, well, I'm not sure that it matters that much. Oh, they're both like that. Never mind. it wasn't crooked. Okay, so triggers we put in later. I have to flip the board back down. But this is everything that you want right now. It also might be worthwhile to like, I don't know, blow any dust out since it's a clear build. I also like to use the foam that they include, just in case. I had some, and I don't know where it is. Or I had some out here. My station is now like actually pretty sloppy. Let me grab some foam. I don't know what the heck happened. Okay, so Funnyplaying kits come with this foam backer thing, and you remember they're used the same way in the original Nintendo installation. So I'm going to insert this foam, and I like to push it all the way as far left as I can. That way it doesn't encroach on the start select membranes, because since you use use select for brightness, and if this foam gets in the way of the membrane, it's like not as responsive. It's just like not a good experience. So we can do this here. And now we flip the board back down. And then if it doesn't go like click down, usually the speaker is not aligned, which happens to be the case right now. So I use a spudger to just push it in. And then I double check what the heck is going on this side, why it's not going down. Okay, so that's down for the most part. We can clip a ribbon cable in. And this is not good because okay, I'm not going to clip the ribbon cable down. I'm checking from the top here and looking, and like you can see the wire is sticking through, and like the ribbon isn't sitting as flush as I would like. So we might need a little bit of, we might actually need some Kapton tape instead of just Louis' assistance. So let me undo this ribbon. I kind of yanked at it a little bit, but I think it's still fine. Okay, it's still fine. Now that we're at this point where like we have wires going from the ribbon to the board, it's just like really important to be extra careful about tension and all that, which I'm not being very careful about right now. I want to get this ribbon. I should have done this earlier, my bad. You could use Kapton tape to like get it in place. Some people tape the back of the board or tape the back of the ribbon to the screen like very early on, which I guess is a good practice, but I worry more about like needing to make adjustments to the board where it's safer to remove the ribbon from it completely, like when we were doing the screen installation. I would rather not have the ribbon attached because it's very easy to tear or break the pin there. So the pins on the connector there. So this is the home stretch. But because it's very important, like alignment and all this stuff. Sorry, Louie, I'm taking your face off. The alignment and the fitment and all that from the inside, from the first time, like from the get-go, or as some people say, the gecko. That's important to prevent shorting and cracking in the shell. So when I was looking at this before, the ribbon was not flush down against the screen. So right now I'm just adding a little bit of Kapton tape from the board to the back of the screen just to hold it in place. Sorry, it's kind of not visible to you. It's not that exciting, I promise. You're not missing out on much. I keep yanking at this. It's like kind of manga-esque. But just take your time. Go slowly. I'm probably not modding my best just because I'm still like I haven't eaten yet and I've been doing this for 3 hours. Trying to explain while also doing something at the same time. It's not super easy. Okay, so the board is down. Or the ribbon is down a little bit. Let's see if I can, okay, I can't really keep that in place. Okay, so I'm just using that to hold it. I'm gonna get some more Kapton tape and tape over the unused 40 pin ribbon. And then I can use a Louis face on there. But we're almost done. I'll just put the Louis face on the back of the screen. That's kind of like my Easter egg for my builds. Usually nobody like goes far enough into the build to discover it though. But I know he's there. I know. Yeah. Okay. Now let's tape down. Louis in there hiding. Now we can try this assembly again. It really helps to have a spudger like this just to push things where they need to be and guide things along. Okay, so this is, for the most part, fitting properly. I'm just checking all the screw posts to make sure they're aligned and stuff like that. Okay, let's see if I can get this ribbon in from here. Maybe not, actually. I think I need to do the ribbon first. You don't have, I'm like mumbling to myself at this point, but you don't have much clearance on, you don't have much length, sorry, like slack in the ribbon on a 32 pin build. So you might have to like lift up the board first to get it into the gate. With 40 pin, you have a little bit more leeway for that. So we lock the clips down, get this back where it was, carefully. Make sure the speaker is aligned, which it isn't. I'm just pushing it in from the side until it clicks. Okay. That side is down. It doesn't, it feels like something is not right. Am I tripping? I think the foam was too far to the right, which is what I was talking about earlier. Sorry, I know this might seem boring, just like checking the fitment, but I promise you it's important. I promise you it makes an actual big difference, and it is what separates like what I would consider like a ready to sell build versus one that I have to sell as like a B grade or defective. Okay. Okay, so now let's see if I can show this. Oh wait, I have a light on this lens that I can use. Okay, now look at this. See this wire here? Like, I don't know if you can see it. That wire, I need to push it as far towards the middle of the console as I can so that it doesn't get pinched by the plastic wall. See this plastic wall? It's like it's gonna pinch on it. So I'm using a spudger and pushing it in from the sides. And this might take quite a few tries. But you just want to keep doing it until you make sure it's cleared. So like right now it's cleared it. And then same on this side where we routed to the L trigger. You want to make sure that it's not getting pinched by the shell. So here, you know, pressing it down a little bit more so you can see it better. This is the kind of thing that you need to inspect for. Notice that the shell does not touch the wire all the way through the route. Because if it does, that's what cracks, or it causes your brightness control to stop working. Okay. And the other one to check, I should have shown you, but like it's under this foam, but it's like by the cartridge connector, or the cartridge slot thing, this black plastic thing. There's a cutout on the shell itself. Let me grab another shell so I can show you. Okay, let me spoil the last of the EVA builds, but this is the last build in the series that I'm doing. But that this cartridge pin, or this cartridge connector leg thing here, corresponds to this cutout that goes to the AB membranes here. So all your wire routing, it needs to be able to fit through here, which it does when we go from here and then up and then along to the test point above here. So that's what you're looking at. Same with towards the top that I just showed you. That was this thing that I'm pushing to clear this. And the last one for the R trigger is this space that we're pushing to clear here. For the start select membrane thing, you have a lot more. Oops. You have a lot more space here because of the way the D-pad is. So like this whole bridge thing. What am I talking about? You have a lot more space because you put the board in, then you put the membrane on top, right? So you have this whole thing, and we did that. We did that. It's fine. I'm just showing you like why you route it that way and what you're trying to avoid as far as like where things pinch. So hopefully that clears up the significance of that. And when I teach how to do stuff, I like to explain the rationale behind why, because it adds significance to the effort you're putting in and the attention to detail you're giving. So you'll know like what you're avoiding, and like it just makes the lesson stick a little bit more. So now we're moving on to assembly. And for this, there are a few things to keep in mind with the Funnyplaying shells. You want to use their aftermarket screws. You can still use the same bit for the JIS screws, so like J1 for the motherboard screws, which I'm doing right now. So those are the shorter ones with the cross-looking head, right? You can still use the same bit that we used to disassemble the OEM screws. Some Game Boy motherboard revisions only come with a screw here and a screw here. Their kits always include three screws, so you have a little bit more stability. I guess it's not hugely important, but like when you're tapping these screws for the first time, just out of habit, what I do now is like I'll just double check to make sure that there's not like a lot of buildup of like plastic at the bottom, because that debris might like impact through the front of the shell and it makes like this ugly bump. So sometimes I'll brush off whatever, if anything comes out on the tip of the screw. Also, you want to have this screwed down pretty snug because it affects the play in the buttons, like how firm the buttons feel. But you don't want it too much that it stresses the board or it causes things to touch and short when they normally wouldn't, or it causes a lot of pressure on the shell. You don't want that either. So it's kind of just like I kind of just get it snug where it seems secure and tight. And if it starts to feel like a little bit too tight or it stops turning, then I'll turn it back like a quarter screw just to be safe. Because before I used to think like the feel in hand is way better when everything's super tight, like there's no play, no wiggle, no tolerance, no shaking, no rattling. But you can achieve that same level of like togetherness without over tightening, because that just leads to more issues. That's how I cracked the red one I built the other day. So this is in. Next step is triggers and bumpers and power switch. Don't forget your power switch. It's very easy to forget. So the way I like to do it is triggers first. Make sure you don't have your triggers in backwards. I was on the Game Boy subreddit and somebody's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of this build." It's like, cool, but I don't know if you notice your triggers are on backwards. They had L and R swapped. It was kind of like kind of an oops. And the reason I like doing triggers first then bumper is because the bumper goes over the trigger a little bit more easy. And if you are rough with the trigger, you'll pull the rubber nub thing that activates the switch on the inside. So is it just me or does this look wonky AF? I'm gonna double check this. Okay, I don't know why I was tripping. Am I? Maybe not. We'll see. Like this trigger looks higher than the other one, so it kind of concerns me. I think it's fine. It should like even out when you start screwing this down. Okay. Power switch. This little rocker here. I'm using the Funnyplaying brand buttons, so they won't have this issue because they have a more pronounced like U-shape thing, and that's what bumps against the inside of the shell. That gives it like the power switch a little bit of a click, because obviously without this rocker, right? without the rocker, the switch doesn't have that kind of clickiness, right? Because remember from the disassembly, it's just sliding. So the thing that causes that satisfying click is those plastic like omega shaped nubs that are interfacing, and you overcome with friction from the flex in the plastic button, right? So another burn dog tip that I figured out: if you're using aftermarket buttons, they generally rattle in higher quality shells because this bump is not as pronounced, so it doesn't make as much like friction or contact. And if you remember the adhesive that I was using before, the UV activated adhesive, I can just like blob a little layer on top of it and let it kind of like form just a little bit of thickness as a layer, and then I harden it, and that kind of I was gonna say like ameliorate. I don't think that's the correct word. It kind of fixes or mitigates the rattling. So that's a little burn dog tip. We don't need to do it here because we're using higher quality parts. So this is assembled. Oh, I was thinking of using a blue back. I'm not. I think black will look cool here, but I can always change it, right? So get this on. Doesn't want to fit on this side, which is kind of worrisome. So let me go from this side first. It's usually the battery compartment that's where it's not fitting. Unless, what is going on here? Okay, I have to see something is in the way. Was there something in the way, or am I just tripping? It could, honestly, it could be this thing, because that's like not really where it should be. And Retro6, the person who like said to do this, sells their own shells, so maybe they don't do that, but it doesn't hurt to just take your time and make sure things like click in properly. Okay, well, that seems fine to me. And it's always better to be extra critical. So the next thing with the Funnyplaying screws, I swear that like they use Y0 screws, so a smaller size screw than before, because we were using Y1 and those like fit pretty much perfectly and don't really strip when you're disassembling the original screws, but for whatever reason Y0 seems to work better on the Funnyplaying ones. So I'm gonna start screwing these down like halfway, and I'm gonna go in like a star shape where I start here, then I go to the opposite side, just so that I'm not tightening too much on one side, so it like more evenly distributes this. Hey Jags, I am back. I'm back since my last Splatoon stream when I had horrible internet. So I'm going to get all of these in just a little bit. Hey Tim, welcome. Oh, that's a great emote. So I'm going to get all of these in just a little bit, and then I'm going to do the same thing where I back out and then clear out any of that debris from tapping the screws in. And you can still use J1 for the battery bay here. Okay, now it's starting to click down a little bit better. But now I'm just gonna undo them real quick and see like all this white stuff. you know, there's a chance that it can like build up and just mess up the shell. So I'm gonna go over each one again and just clear that out. Also try to go slow here because it's easy, you might like scratch the shell if you're selling these and want to be really nitpicky about the condition. But so far, I think this is fitting okay. I've also had issues with these particular screw posts cracking, so I will not screw those down as tightly. The only thing that sucks is it can affect the wobbliness of your trigger. So we're gonna try to get like a medium of good responsive triggers and not too tight of a shell. And yeah, if you do this, if you take your time and do everything right, hopefully the first time you won't really need to go back in here and make adjustments. I tightened this side already. Yeah, I think I did. Okay. That worries me. So I'm going to start unscrewing and checking. I'm looking at the top and it doesn't look as flush as I would like. So I will immediately unscrew anything before something cracks and take a look at what could be going on here. I'm not sure if this trigger is in properly or not. Like, I don't see any wires on this side. Like, I'm looking at this. It's like not clicking down, whereas this kind of clicks down a little bit better. Maybe I'm tripping. But I'm scared, you know? Since that seemed to be the problem side, I'm going to keep the bottom unscrewed a little bit so that there's a little more tolerance, like room. Maybe it's fine. I think I just didn't screw it down enough, but it's better to, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry, so double check what's going on. Okay, that is the correct amount of flush. I think I was, maybe the bottom was too tight before the top was properly tightened. Yeah, this looks a lot better. I'm just getting the corners down now. Okay, that feels reasonably snug. I think snug is a better goal than tight. So we'll try this one again. Okay. And then lastly, the battery compartment. Hopefully all of this goes well and the fitment is good, and then I could just turn the thing on and there are no issues, and that's a POG, and then we do some more QA tests. So this is the one screw in particular you need to be careful to not over tighten, because if you over tighten it and you don't clean the front, you might get this bump showing through. So that appears to be done. Let's make sure power switch is in the off position. Feels good. Triggers feel okay. Get some batteries in. Take this off for now. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I can wipe in a little bit. Ooh, sick. Okay, so we test brightness control. Seems to work. Everything looks pretty flush. Full focus. Maybe this side? Nah, I think it's fine. The top looks flush as well, pretty flush. Triggers are still audibly clicky, so it's not mushy. And the brightness control works, right? So let's validate. We can go into our test cartridge. So we don't have any pixels cut off or anything here from like a normal viewing angle. The volume is good. Let's just check. Check controls. L and R are pretty responsive. A and B feel good. This D-pad membrane I think needs a little breaking in because I'm using brand new ones. But it was never super clicky to begin with from what I remember. It's kind of a mushy D-pad sort of as a baseline anyway. Its diagonals, start and select work. Nice. So I can end the stream soon because this has been quite a long stream. I think like 3 hours or something. Really? Okay, I'm so happy you said that. Thank you for saying that that was fun to watch, because I tried really hard and I'm so lucky that like it worked out without any like huge mistakes. So let's go over some of the details in this build. Wait, am I tripping? Okay, I thought I was hearing like some weird whine and stuff. It's from this cart. When it loads, like it draws a different it's a very power hungry. But yeah, so let's go over some of the details just to recap what we did here. And we could do this while watching some Eva. You can hear right now while it's loading. It has like this high pitched whine. I need to test with an actual game if that's normal or not. But that's a full volume too. So brightness control. Oh, every time I press a button, it'll reset the video. So maybe I shouldn't press buttons. We have the green power LED. We have the holographic glass lens. It's centered. I actually managed to not get dust in it. We have the custom matching green start select. We have the black buttons with the black membranes and white triggers and bumpers. And front half is clear blue, black half is solid black. And this is the EVA 00 Prime build. So that completes the mech series that I just finished. Which includes so 00, Prime, 01, 02. So these three are all done. Kind of happy about that. And the last one I have that is honestly my favorite. I'll do probably next weekend because I have a lot of work coming up. Is based on Ray's plug suit character design. So that's what this is going to be. And I might record like for YouTube this build. But this one actually goes over every mod that I would want to do and cover in the YouTube video. So I'm happy I was able to pull this off. And hopefully I can just save the VOD and then re-upload it to YouTube. But yeah, for now I'm going to clean up, get this. Oh, actually there's one more. There's another finishing detail I could do. While we're at it, might as well finish this. Since I do think I like the black rear half anyway. And then I'm gonna end the stream and eat some breakfast because it's now 2:30. I've been doing this for a little bit longer than I thought, but I'm glad that I was able to get through all the mods that I wanted to do. So I'll just wipe this down a little bit. And the reason I'm putting the label here is one, it looks kind of cool, but two, there's a hole here for where you can adjust the potentiometer on the board, and that's just like another point of entry for dust. So since I'm selling these, I want to make sure that the customer doesn't have to worry about dust accumulating on the inside. Okay, so that's the EVA 00 Prime build. Oh look, it has the painted inside edge for that seamless look. Kind of poggers. Okay. Thanks for coming by, guys. I'm gonna end the stream. I hope it was educational. I hope you had fun. And keep an eye out for these builds. I'm gonna be selling them and donating to probably some kind of like Toys for Tots type charity and like some youth mental health organization. Thanks, Octopapa. You have a good day too. All right, peace.